I'm TJ Masilela from Palatable Politics, and we are here at the B20 doing a special series on business and covering the B20. We're going to be giving you insights, interviews, and letting you know how this goes and how it contributes to the G20. Comment below, let us know. Palatable Politics. TJ Masilela, yes, back again. Right now, we've got Tsholo Mogotsi, not Brown, there's no relation to Brown, but he is the Chief Partnership Officer at YES, Youth Employment Service, and also a participant in the Task Force for Education and Employment. Welcome to the show. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Can you give us a journey of how you guys got involved in the B20 process?
Well, the B20 obviously is like the business meeting of the G20, and YES is a public-private partnership between business and government to facilitate youth employment in the private sector. So YES works with 1,900 different companies to place about 40,000 young people in private sector jobs as a springboard for a career. So because we are this high-profile initiative in South Africa, the B20 team thought it would be useful for YES to participate in it because YES is a bit of a unique model globally in the sense that all of these jobs and this initiative is entirely private sector funded.
What is the business model of YES?
So basically, there is an incentive that was created by the Department of Trade and Industry that says that any organization with a BEE scorecard can get an enhancement on that scorecard if they employ young people through YES. So we're an NPO, but we are administering a government incentive in our name because it's a public-private partnership. So then these companies approach YES and they then employ young people in order to get access to this incentive.
And then with regards to the task force, the employment and education and employment, so I think what are some of the things that were discussed and the outcomes from the task force that formed part of the B20 recommendations?
Now, I think the main issues in the task force was what are the factors that business believes need to be changed in the global education and employment systems in order to enhance better education and employment outcomes. So some of the deliberations were around digital skilling, and the need to support, for example, the transition into the digital world in developing countries, especially in Africa. There was a discussion around the growing discord between education and what employers require, and that there's a need to bridge this gap between education and the labor market, and that there's a need for a more demand-led approach to education. So those were some of the main issues that were discussed. Some of the findings really is that there were a number of initiatives that came out of that task force that were promoted as some sort of case studies. And YES was one of those case studies because it's really a demand-led skilling initiative, because these young people that get into these jobs are skilled by the employers at the point at which they enter the workforce. And I think increasingly there's a need for training and skilling initiatives to be much more closely tied to the employment process itself, because otherwise then we wouldn't have this challenge that we have like in South Africa, which is a huge graduate unemployment problem, especially in the TVET system. So with YES, we can then employ a dual VET system, which is basically saying that it's formal education, that's the first part, formal education either through TVETs or through universities or through short courses, and then from that formal education, and then they go into the workplace for work experience, which is a form of informal learning, and through this dual VET method, then young people are better skilled by the time that they enter the workforce.
And what about those requirements that the youth generally struggle with? And it's been a major complaint. The aspect of requirements in terms of years experience when applying for a job. Was that discussed, and what were the outcomes of that discussion?
Yes, it was discussed. And there's a need clearly for more internship type of models. And yes, of course, it's exactly that. It's an internship model. So these employers give young people 1 year, 12-month, full-time minimum wage and above jobs. So that's the year standard. And through that 1 year work experience, it's been shown that you become 7 times more likely to be employed than someone who's got 0 experience. So YES is actually meant to provide that first year of experience that can become the basis for a future employer to then find you worthy to be employed. And it was very important that these internships, while government is a very important contributor, this is really about business. And it's very important that these internships are provided by the private sector because, I'm very sorry to say, experience in the private sector is deemed to be more valuable to employers than experience in public employment jobs. So public employment initiatives are important, but from an experience perspective, the private sector experience is more valuable for employment outcomes.
And then from the other side, from a business, because in the internship, there also has been, whether it's a perception that, or lived reality for some, I guess, that businesses would also exploit the internship program, that bring an intern in, the 12 months, you let them go, you bring another one, and they just have it as a form of legal cheap labor exploitation. Is that something that was also discussed, and how do we avoid that from happening if it wasn't?
Yes, I think there are some bad apples out there that look at it that way, but ultimately it's their loss. From what we have seen, companies that take a strategic approach to making sure that they take advantage of that opportunity, of that labor, of that young person, and to make sure that they have then someone who can be developed with the skills and the talent that can add value to the organization. Companies that take that approach ultimately are the ones that benefit from these initiatives. Those that are in it for a quick buck, they might make a quick buck, but in the end, from a strategy perspective, there's an opportunity cost there. They have lost the opportunity. What we have seen is also that there is a behavioral change and a transition, because some employers come into the system looking to really be transactional about it, like it's a compliance thing or whatever, maybe the reason why they're doing it. But once they actually interface with these young people in their workplace, they find out that some of them are actually very talented, they add value, and suddenly their perspective changes. So you can transition from having an employer that was skeptical at the beginning about having young people come into the workplace, but through that experience, they then become big supporters of the very same young people. So in the end, it's not only about, a small short-term change, but it's also about changing the mindsets of employers. And you can really only change the mindset of employers towards employing young people by having them experience it and have it be a good experience. And if it's a good experience, then ultimately they will be more willing to employ more young people in the future. And from what we have seen, definitely, we've seen CFOs who have been initially pay the check and get these people in and out. And when it comes at the end of the year, the graduation, that's the same CFO has interacted with these young people. Their CFO is the one that is crying at the graduation ceremony. So it's all about really changing mindsets.
And then the gender pay gap, was that discussed, and what were the outcomes for that?
The gender pay gap is a real thing. I think in South Africa it exists, and in other countries. The trend in South Africa is that it has been narrowing a little bit, and it also linked to, for example, even education outcomes. I think globally and also in South Africa, the trend is that women are becoming more educated than men, or they're becoming educated at a higher rate than men, and that is clearly also having an impact on the gender pay gap. Although we still see a difference between women and women of similar qualifications and similar experiences being paid at different levels. So I think there's still a fight that needs to be fought there, but the long-term trend is encouraging.
Okay, no, thank you for taking time out and giving your insights. And before you go, your expectations of the whole B20, G20, and how that's going to impact the lived reality for South Africans in particular?
Well, we've issued a final B20 report with some recommendations to the G20. And I think we're expecting two things to happen, is that we're hoping that the G20, the government meeting, will take seriously some of the recommendations coming from business and implement as many of them as they can. But on the other hand, I think the B20 itself and the businesses that are involved in this initiative, they also have an intention to take forward those recommendations themselves. So we're not entirely relying on government to take these items forward. Us as business, we're going to see how much we can push from our side as well.
Thank you. Thank you once again.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Hope that's been insightful. Stay tuned. More is coming your way. TJ, Palatable Politics.